Former Wisconsin Governor Martin Schreiber is the author of My Two Elaines, Learning, Coping, and Surviving as an Alzheimer's Caregiver, and is an award-winning crusader for Alzheimer's caregivers and people living with dementia. More than an account of his struggles in caring for his wife, My Two Elaines also offers sage advice that respects the one living with Alzheimer's while maintaining the caregiver's health. And it's my great privilege to have him join us here today. Welcome, Governor. I appreciate your spending time with us.
Well, Gary, thank you. It's really my pleasure and my privilege to be with you and to know of everything that you've been about and have accomplished and so forth. To be with you is quite an honor. So thank you for that.
Thank you. You know, I know that caregivers can easily guess the meaning of the title of your book, My Two Elaines. But for anybody else listening, can you elaborate on the meaning of the title?
Yes, the first Elaine was the girl that I fell in love with when I was in Latin class, freshman in high school, 14 years old. And not only fell in love with, but what became my life's partner. And so we went, we dated, we went steady, we got engaged, we got married, 4 children, 13 grandchildren, now 7 great-grandchildren, my advisor, my companion, my friend, everything that you could want in a life's partner. So that was the first Elaine. And the second Elaine began to appear when she was about 64, 65 years of age. And the second Elaine began to get lost driving to and from places she had been going to and from for the last 10 years. She, well, as a great cook, would get things mixed up so badly with recipes that she would cry. She would scrape the side of, and then she would come up with things that she said happened that never happened. And so that going back that length of time, almost 20 years to when the second Elaine began to come into being, that then became one of the most important, significant, challenging parts of my life. And so she passed away a year and a half ago, and the disease surely took its toll. But in the meantime, I had a chance to meet people who were gracious and kind and who helped fill the hole, the hole that we caregivers feel and have in our lives when our loved one is in the process of leaving us. But wonderful people who helped build that hole and help me get through it all.
Well, one of the important concepts you talk about in the book, you call living in their world, or therapeutic fibbing. And I always like to call them loving white lives. And it's really hard for people to understand when you're living with somebody who's living in a different world than you, to tell them things that fit their worldview, yet it's not ours, isn't lying, isn't bad, isn't a terrible thing. It's actually a tool that you can use as a family caregiver.
Well, absolutely. And Elaine asked me once how her parents were. And I said, well, they said, Elaine, your parents are both dead. Well, the shock on her face when she realized she didn't say goodbye, much less attend the funeral. So I promised myself I would never put her through that again. So the next time she asked me how I said, Elaine, your parents are doing so well, and your mom likes working at church, and your dad likes his sports. And so, oh, she said, that makes me feel so good. Well, that was therapeutic fibbing. And therapeutic, 2 things about therapeutic fibbing, Gary, I want you to know. One, I tried it the first year of marriage. But the second thing about therapeutic fibbing, you know, in the Old Testament, it talks about how Moses went up to Mount Sinai and got down the 10 Commandments. Well, believe it or not, I was there. And I saw when I brought down the tablets, and I saw what was going on. And what happened was I took a look at the other side of the tablet, and you cannot believe this, but this was, of course, in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, but on the other side of the tablet, written in pure English, it says that therapeutic fibbing is not forbidden, in fact, encouraged. And I think that people have to understand that. It's just all part of it. But, oh my gosh, as you said, the importance of joining the world of the person who now is, and we have seen it, and I'm sure many of your viewers have seen it. As much as we want to have the person drawn back into our world, as much as we want that, it don't happen. That disease takes its hold, and once it takes its hold, and I'll tell you what happened. Before I'm ready to go to press with the very first edition, a couple of weeks before, I find a series of notes and journals that Elaine had been keeping since she was diagnosed. And I read those notes and journals, and I want you to know we had prayed together and we had cried together, but never did I understand the courage that it takes someone diagnosed with this disease to keep on going. And so, but it brought back to me the fact that here she is aware that she is going to be losing her memory. She's very much aware of that. And then I'm her loving, caregiving husband. No, Elaine, it didn't happen on a Thursday. It happened on a Friday. No, Elaine, it wasn't the Smiths. It was the Joneses. No, Elaine, why did you put the keys into the dishwasher? Elaine, why are you asking me the same question? And what I was doing, I was making life so much more difficult for her. She couldn't remember she put the keys in the dishwasher. She couldn't remember. She just asked me the same question a couple minutes ago. She couldn't. And finally I got it. But I tell you, we missed out on moments of joy, moments that we could have had better, but at least I was able to get that into my head. I had to let go of this person who once was, so that I could embrace this person who now is.
My two Elaines.
Yes.
Also, I heard from a friend of mine who was living with Alzheimer's, who was giving a speech, and a caregiver stood up and she said, I get so mad. And she was getting mad telling the story. I get so mad at my husband. Where are we going? Well, I just told you. Where are we going? We just told you. And it goes on 12, 15 times. And he said, but the thing to remember is, for the 15 times you remember him saying this, every time's the first time. So all he gets is your angry, mad face. And that's no way to live. And that really struck a nerve with her. And I think she went home and changed the way she related to her loved one.
Yes. Well, and then there's another aspect to that, Gary, and that is you feel guilty. You feel guilty. Well, first of all, you do everything you can to try and help your loved one, and you think you got it taken care of, and all of a sudden you wake up in the morning and it's a new day, something new is going on. But then you begin to say, well, I see my loved one sort of disappearing, but I'm getting angry with her and I'm getting upset, and what's wrong with me? And so there's enough challenge to being a caregiver without carrying around all that guilt. And we can get rid of a lot of that guilt, I think, by just understanding that this is a different person in another world, and we've got to understand where they are.
Well, especially at the beginning of the process, communication is key. And I think you're starting each chapter with Elaine's notes is so very important, because we don't want to infantilize our loved ones. We're not looking at taking over what they think they can do, maybe what they can safely do, or making them feel like, less than. So that communication and that learning how she was feeling about it, I think was helpful to you and is helpful to all your readers.
Yes, one of the words that you said was less than, making them feel less than. And that's what I did to Elaine when I would try and correct her and argue with her and so forth. I was making her feel less than she was. And again, I get back to the fact, that you're going to be losing your memory, all of the question about what is ahead of you in life. And then you get this constant criticism and negative feedback. And first of all, what I am talking about, what you and I are talking about, Gary, is much easier said than done. And my heart goes out to every caregiver, for their love, their patience, their understanding. And also, I believe you and I just truly acknowledge the tough job that it is to every caregiver. So yes, if we can make the caregiver's life easier and help them live their best lives possible, that's going to help our loved one live their best life possible as well.
That's such a lovely, lovely thought. And when you get that to that point, sometimes it's pleasant, and you can have humorous conversations with your loved one, because humor is, I think, one of the most underrated and most important tools we have as a family caregiver, to be able to share those moments with your loved ones, with your fellow caregivers, and see the humor in what's going on as well.
Well, I strongly agree with you. And so Elaine and I were having lunch at her assisted living area in the cafeteria, and we're having lunch, and she's beginning to cry. And I said, Elaine, why are you crying? Well, she says, I'm beginning to love you more than my husband. Well, I didn't ask her what's wrong with your turkey husband. I didn't do that. That in and of itself was sort of a moment of humor as to where she was. But it's not only the aspect of humor, but here's also what that meant to me. And that what it meant to me was that it was not necessary for her to know my name in order for our hearts to touch. And I try and have caregivers and friends of people living with this disease to understand it's okay if they cannot remember our name, because that's not what is important. What is important, the famous author says, I may not remember what you said, but I will always remember how you made me feel.
Absolutely.
And so we can, through a hug, through a smile, through a holding of hands, help our loved one just have an understanding that our hearts are touching.
It's so well said. Can you walk me through the book? If I pick up the book as a caregiver, what do you want me to know or learn or have seen by the time I close the book after the last page?
I think the most important aspect of it all is the fact that we have to join the world of the person who now is. And as hard and difficult as it is, that means we have to let go of this person who once was. And then first of all, to understand we cannot beat this disease at this moment in time. There is nothing that's going to take care of our present situation. So rather than worrying about fighting this disease, to take on a different direction, which is then to say, I am going to help my loved one and myself live our best lives possible.
Yeah.
How do we help our loved one and ourselves live our best lives possible? One, by joining their world. Well, then how do you join their world? Well, therapeutic fibbing is certainly one of them. Redirection. And I'll talk about the fact that it's 9:30 in the morning and Elaine wants a glass of wine. Elaine, no, it's 9:30. That is not the answer. The answer is, you want red wine or white wine? Do you want it in a smaller glass or in a smaller glass? Do you want it with your friends, or do you want... So redirection. By redirection, and we don't have to get that combative situation. Now, let's assume hypothetically that Elaine is not redirected. And she says, I want a glass of... What is wrong with a person having a glass of wine at 9:30 in the morning if they don't know it's morning, noon, or night anyway? So what do I want people to get out of my book? I want them to understand, I think, number one, that we acknowledge and are aware of the challenge of it all and that they're true heroes. And then also to join the world of the person who now is. And then I try and give guidance with special notes, as to what I learned and what I wish I would have known earlier, sooner.
Yeah, one more quick note on therapeutic fibbing is that if you told you told Elaine that her parents had died, and she goes through all that shock and horror that she went through when they originally did die. And then the next day she forgot, and you tell her again, you're making her relive that pain over and over again. There's no reason for that.
That's a very important point. And, you know, again, being a caregiver is one of the toughest jobs in the world, but if we can help caregivers sort of understand that, again, it helps them live their best lives possible.
And share with one another and understand the value proposition of appropriate, well-led support group, and not isolate ourselves. That's a big challenge with family caregivers. That's why we host the Fearless Caregiver conferences around the country. So more than anything else, caregivers can be in the room with each other and see they're not alone.
That is so important. And what happened in my life, and I have seen it happen in other lives too, is you love you love her so much, and you want to do everything possible to help them. And no matter what you do, things are not getting better, they're getting worse. So you begin to isolate yourself. You begin to focus so much on this loved one of mine that you stop going to the gym, you stop meeting with friends, you stop having a cup of coffee with people, and so forth. And here is what I talk about, and that is, let's assume hypothetically that you know, every one of your viewers and I, because I win the $1 billion lottery, I'm taking them all on a Caribbean cruise.
Yes.
So we're down there cruising around in the Caribbean, and one of our dear ones falls overboard. Well, we throw them a lifeline. They grab it. Well, it breaks, and now they drown. And what I contend is that we caregivers gnaw away at that lifeline so that it becomes weak and frayed and frail, and then it breaks. How do we gnaw away at that lifeline? We don't get enough socialization.
Yeah.
Probably end up maybe having too much to drink. We probably don't get decent exercise. We probably don't get enough sleep, and we probably don't eat well. So each one of those things that we do, we gnaw away at that lifeline, and we love our person so much. But what we do then is completely opposite in helping them on their journey. And we do it by gnawing away at our lifeline by ourselves, and thereby impacting on our own lifeline as well. Because I'll tell you that alcohol, I found out, is the poison for caregivers.
Yeah.
And not getting enough socialization, all of those things. And I became I would lose my temper so easily with people who were trying to do their best job, maybe behind a rental car counter, or maybe when I was checking out at the Kohl's, you know, department store, and I was irrationally irritable, and all because I wasn't taking care of myself. And so what is happening is, we know that caregiving is one of a very lonely responsibility, because this Alzheimer's is not what I call a chicken casserole disease. You know, if I have open heart surgery, they'll bring me a chicken casserole. If I have a hip operation, but my wife now has Alzheimer's because people are ignorant of the disease. They stay away, not because they're mean or they're trying to hurt us, but they just don't know what to do. So then it becomes so much more lonely, and so the job is so difficult. But then I stupidly did things to my own self again, like not getting enough exercise and feeling guilty when I would get upset, and forgetting the fact that I'm human and we're all trying to do our best job possible.
Yeah, and you know, we think that taking a moment to care for ourselves is something we should be guilty about. But I always say caring for yourself is job one if you want to give your loved one the best care possible for themselves. Because you take yourself out of the circle of care, you're no good to them at all.
And that was beginning to happen. You know, when I was going through counseling, and the counselor asked me one day, what's wrong? And I said, I cannot see putting Elaine into a nursing home. And she says, well, you're not putting Elaine anyplace. You're giving her an opportunity to be who she is now. Yeah. And Marty Schreiber's 24/7 nursing home care, take care of Elaine? Absolutely not. I was getting angry and frustrated. I was irrationally irritable. I wasn't getting enough sleep because I was sleeping by the door for fear she'd go out at night and so forth. And I was selfishly trying to beat this disease. Okay. And again, I want to get back to the fact we can't beat this disease.
Right.
We can make the determination we're going to have the goal to help our loved one live our best lives and their best lives possible. Then that is attainable. And that is a wonderful success feeling when you know that that's what you're in the process of doing.
Marty, you do something that I also do is you're blessed to be able to go around the country and being in rooms with other family caregivers. And I learned so much from them. It's helpful when I have articles to write because they give me all the wisdom and advice that the world could ever know. What are you learning from the family caregivers you're meeting when you're going out about talking about the book?
I don't care in which corner of the United States of America you're in. The responsibilities of the caregiver, the guilt, the frustration, the worry. It's no different whether you're in Staten Island or in Texas or in Florida or in California, in Wisconsin or Minnesota or any place. And I have found out that learning to let go of this person who once was becomes one of the most important suggestions, remedies, cures, goals to help people. But I don't know why I would have thought it. Maybe I just I don't know why I thought it, but I thought, well, it would be different. You know, that there would be, but you could take you could bring in an audience from any part of this country and set them down, and you would think these are all people from this area because that's how everybody is thinking and noting what they're doing. Yes.
I believe that firmly. Once you've seen one family caregiving situation, you've seen one family caregiving situation, but there are so many ways that we're walking the same path that as we interact and ask questions and learn from each other, we become a better caregiver to our loved ones and better to ourselves and better to other family members from the lessons we learn from our fellow caregivers. So that goes back to not isolating yourself.
Yes, and I'll tell you that when we do have support groups and so forth, I would strongly recommend, and I know that you do that all the time, but mutual support groups and sharing and listening. And the big mistake when Elaine was first diagnosed, I was feeling, so I asked the nurse, what can I do? Well, you go to support groups. Well, here's what I foolishly thought. I foolishly thought it was a group of people like me sitting around a circle and saying, oh, you know what my wife did? She put the keys in the dishwasher. Well, I got something better than that. She asked me the same question. Well, and I did not understand early enough the strength, the comfort that you can get if you are in fact sharing your experiences. And it's not only the learning, but I think it's also the ability to express yourself, to share with someone what you're going through and have them understand and acknowledge. And so people ask me along the trail, what is the best thing that you think you can do for a caregiver? And I think, well, number one is acknowledgement. To simply acknowledge that you understand what they're going through. From there on in, you can get involved in suggesting you cut the grass or, get chicken casserole or so forth.
Yeah, that's a big secret too. I'm glad you brought that up. It's that we need to turn around and know what to ask for to get the support, because the people around us want to help, but they're afraid to step in because we're like, oh, we don't need the help. We don't want to see our friends see what our loved one is now. We don't want to feel like we can't do it ourselves. But I always say a caregiver is the CEO of Caring for Your Loved One, Inc. And the CEO of Ford doesn't fill the tires on the line. You have to find people who are going to help you, because when you ask for specific bite-sized, easy, manageable things from your friends and families and neighbors, they're helped too. They feel better too. They don't feel imposed upon. They feel like part of the process.
That's a very important point that you make, because when I think of the circle of friends around me as I'm going through this, I know that they would have felt so much better had I asked them to do things, because he didn't know what to do. And
it's helpful to offload some of those non-important things. Maybe when you go to the store, see if I need anything. Maybe you could go to the drugstore, maybe come over and cook dinner for us and talk about anything but caregiving. All of these things get you back into the circle of humanity. And I think that your point is very well spoken. I always say that the support group is your family of choice.
Yes. Well, and then, it's not only helping cut the grass, or would you pick up some prescriptions from, but it's also making the monthly payment on the car, paying the mortgage.
If you could get that, go get it. I never found a way to get that. Marty, what would be the one most important piece of advice you'd like to leave family caregivers with?
Well, I think the most important bit of advice is to understand we cannot beat this disease. Therefore, our goal should be to try and help our loved one live their best life possible, thereby allowing us also to live our best life possible. So I think that would be it. And then right underneath that, in order to help live our best life possible, then I get into the area of joining their world, and that ends up being such a critical factor. And so that, then I sort of said two things, but I think joining their world is helping them live their best life possible. That would be the most important thing. And then also, if they want to, they can buy my book.
Yeah.
And by the way,
that's the number one thing.
Yes. So anyway, so I had my book. I self-published the first book, and there's 50,000 of the first, my self-published book in print, 50,000 in print, and I only have 49,800 left in my garage.
All right.
Well, anyway, that's the pretty good. But anyway, so Harper Publishing, got a hold of my book, and they saw it, and they felt that My Two Elaines was important enough that they would want to take it and publish it nationwide. And so that was really not only quite a compliment to me, but a good feeling, because based on the feedback that I was getting, I knew the book was helping people. And as we talked earlier, it now is my mission in life to help caregivers learn, cope, and survive. And how fortunate I am to be able to share with people who are going through extreme challenge, and to be able to say, yes, there is hope, and what we can do is help our loved one live their best life possible, and there's success in that.
That's lovely. And also, I know you're donating to different Alzheimer's causes through the book. So we need to we need to get rid of the 48 in your garage and sell another 100,000.
Yes, thank you very much. No, it's I a while back I fell, and I busted my kneecap and also part of my arm, and so I'm walking with a cane, and I'm beginning to think about a cane. And what does a cane do? Well, it gives you balance. It helps you move forward. It gives you confidence. It keeps you from falling again, and so forth. What I have found is that there have been people in my life since Elaine become ill who have been canes for me, and I will tell your viewers, your caregivers, that they, as tough as this challenge is, they are going to find canes, people to help give them stability and so forth, but we have to be open to it. But we also have to get away from gnawing at our own lifeline. The chances of us having a better life are much better if we don't chomp away at our lifeline by not getting enough sleep and decent food and decent exercise and so forth.
I never heard that, but it's such a striking metaphor. The other thing a cane is support. And that's what we need more than anything else. So I thank you for the support you're giving family caregivers and the message that you're sharing and your story that you're sharing. And I think everybody needs to go out and buy this book.
Thank you very much, Gary. It's my honor and pleasure to be with you.